The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, piercing through Earth's communication networks like a blade through silk. Captain Marcus Vale stood in the command center of Lunar Station, watching as the alien transmission decoded itself across holographic displays. The voice that emerged was cold, mechanical, utterly devoid of emotion. "People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Zephyrian Collective. Surrender your weapons, dismantle your fleets, and prepare for occupation. You have 72 hours to comply. Resistance will be met with total annihilation." The transmission cut to black, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Vale, a weathered veteran of the Outer Colony Wars, felt his jaw tighten. Around him, junior officers exchanged nervous glances, their faces pale with the weight of what they'd just witnessed. Lieutenant Zara Knox, Vale's communications officer, broke the silence first. "Sir, we're receiving similar transmissions from every major population center on Earth and the colonies. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Vale nodded grimly. The Zephyrians had done their homework. Intelligence reports over the past months had painted a picture of an expansionist empire that had already consumed dozens of star systems. They were methodical, efficient, and utterly ruthless in their conquest. "Contact Admiral Torres immediately," Vale ordered. "And get me a direct line to General Morrison on Earth." As his crew scrambled to establish connections, Vale stared out at the stars beyond Lunar's observation deck. Somewhere out there, an alien armada was preparing to make good on their threat. The Zephyrians had conquered world after world with the same simple strategy: overwhelming force followed by brutal occupation. Most civilizations surrendered without firing a shot, but they had never encountered humanity. Admiral Rosa Torres materialized as a hologram in the center of the command deck, her expression grim but determined. Behind her, the bridge of the ESS. Defiant buzzed with activity. "Marcus, I assume you've received their charming invitation." 72 hours, Vale replied. "What's our status?" "The Third Fleet is already moving into position near Jupiter. The Martian defense grid is at full readiness. Earth's orbital platforms are armed and waiting." Torres paused, her eyes hardening. "They want us to kneel, Marcus, but humanity doesn't kneel to anyone." General Morrison's weathered face appeared on a secondary display. The old soldier looked tired, but resolute. "Project Titan is ready for deployment. Our elite units have been training for exactly this scenario. If the Zephyrians want a war, they'll get one they'll never forget." Vale felt a surge of pride mixed with determination. Humanity had faced extinction before, plague, war, environmental collapse, and had always found a way to survive and thrive. This would be no different. "Then we make our choice," Vale said quietly. "We stand, we fight, and we show these aliens what happens when you threaten humanity's freedom." The countdown had begun. The Zephyrian fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic locusts, their ships casting shadows across Jupiter's moons. 300 vessels strong, led by the massive dreadnought Worldbreaker, they moved with the confidence of a force that had never known defeat. Commander Jax Reeves watched from the bridge of his stealth frigate Ghost Runner, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. His ship was one of 12 specially modified vessels designed for exactly this moment. Around him, his crew of 24 worked in perfect silence, their movements precise and deadly efficient. Picking up their communications, whispered Tech. Specialist Nova Chen from her station. "They're already discussing orbital bombardment patterns for Earth. They seem confident." Reeves allowed himself a cold smile. The Zephyrians had studied humanity's conventional forces, but they knew nothing about Project Titan. Earth's most classified military program had produced warriors that existed only in whispered rumors and redacted files. "Signal the fleet," Reeves ordered. "Operation Sledgehammer is a go." The Ghost Runner and her sister ships emerged from hiding like phantoms materializing from shadow. Their hulls, composed of adaptive metamaterials, shifted and flowed to absorb sensor sweeps. To the Zephyrian fleet, they appeared as nothing more than space debris. Aboard the Worldbreaker, Fleet Commander Vex 9 studied the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. The human homeworld lay defenseless before them. Just another primitive civilization about to learn the price of defiance. "Begin the demonstration," Vex 9 commanded. "Target their moon base. A single strike should convince them of the futility of resistance." But as the Worldbreaker's primary weapon systems charged, alarms began screaming across Zephyrian bridges. 12 human ships had appeared from nowhere, their weapons already locked onto critical targets. "Impossible," Vex 9 hissed. "Our sensors detected nothing." The Ghost Runner struck first, her quantum torpedoes punching through the Worldbreakers. Shields like they were made of paper. The massive dreadnought shuddered as explosions cascaded along its hull. But this was only the beginning. From launch bays throughout the human fleet, deployment pods began ejecting like bullets from a gun. Each pod contained a single Titan operative, humanity's answer to the impossible. These warriors had been forged in the fires of genetic enhancement, cybernetic augmentation, and brutal training that would break normal humans. Sergeant Kane Blackthorne felt the familiar rush of adrenaline as his pod smashed through the Worldbreaker's armor plating. His enhanced muscles absorbed the impact that would have pulverized an ordinary person. Around him, his squad of Titans prepared for close combat. The Zephyrians had conquered through superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but they had never faced an enemy that could match their strength while surpassing their determination. As Titan squads began carving through alien vessels like living weapons, the tide of battle shifted dramatically. "Report!" Vex 9 screamed as his flagship shook under human assault. "We're being boarded by, I don't know what they are. They're tearing through our troops like they're made of paper." For the first time in centuries, fear crept into Vex 9's voice. 3 weeks after the first battle, the war had spread across 4 star systems. The Zephyrian Collective, shaken by their initial defeat, had called in reinforcements from across their empire. What began as a simple conquest had become their greatest challenge in over 2 centuries. Colonel Diana Frost stood on the observation deck of the ESS Vengeance, watching as her hunter-killer groups prepared for another raid. The 40-year-old career soldier had spent the last decade preparing for asymmetric warfare against a superior enemy. Now, her theories were being tested in the crucible of actual combat. "Ma'am, we've located their supply convoy," reported Lieutenant Pike Hawkins, her tactical officer. 18 cargo vessels, 6 escorts, heading for the Proxima system. Frost nodded. The Zephyrians had made the classic mistake of overextending their supply lines. Their massive fleets required constant resupply, creating vulnerable targets that humanity could exploit. "Deploy Shadow Squadron. I want those supplies at the bottom of space." Captain Rex Morgan led Shadow Squadron in his modified interceptor Razorback. Behind him, 11 other pilots guided their ships through the void with practiced precision. These weren't ordinary fighter pilots. They were Titan candidates who had been deemed too valuable for ground operations, their reflexes enhanced to superhuman levels. The Zephyrian convoy moved through space with mechanical regularity, their sensors scanning for threats. They detected nothing until Morgan's squadron materialized from hyperspace directly in their path. "This is Captain Rex Morgan of the Terran Defense Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Your convoy is now under attack. Surrender your vessels and prepare to be boarded." The Zephyrian response was immediate and predictable. Their escort ships opened fire with everything they had, filling space with deadly energy beams and projectile weapons. But Shadow Squadron had been trained for exactly this scenario. Morgan's ship danced between enemy fire with impossible grace, his enhanced nervous system processing information faster than any biological brain should be capable of. He lined up, He shot and fired, his plasma cannons punching through the lead escort's shields and vaporizing its command section. Around him, his squadron mates performed similar miracles of skill and precision. Within minutes, the convoy's escorts were reduced to drifting wreckage. The cargo ships, defenseless and abandoned by their protectors, offered no resistance as Titan boarding parties seized control. But Morgan knew this was just the beginning. Intelligence suggested the Zephyrians were preparing something massive, a response that would make their initial invasion look like a scouting mission. Back on Earth, in a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Morrison met with his most trusted advisors. The grizzled veteran looked older than his 60 years, the weight of humanity's survival resting heavily on his shoulders. "How many Titan operatives do we have combat-ready?" he asked. Dr. Rebecca Stone, the project's chief scientist, consulted. Her datapad, 843 full operatives, another 200 in final training phases. "We're pushing the enhancement process as fast as we can, but we can't risk failures." Morrison nodded grimly. Each Titan represented years of preparation and resources that humanity could barely afford, but they were proving their worth with every engagement. "Sir," interrupted Intelligence Chief Nathan Cross, "we're picking up massive fleet movements in Zephyrian space. Our best estimates suggest they're assembling over 2,000 ships for a final assault on Earth." The room fell silent. Even with their victories, humanity had never faced odds like that. Morrison stood slowly, his weathered face set with determination. "Then we prepare for the fight of our lives." The Zephyrian warfleet assembled in the dark space between stars, a collection of vessels so vast it defied comprehension. 2,300 ships of various classes, from nimble destroyers to massive siege platforms capable of cracking planets. At its heart sat the Dominion's Wrath, a super dreadnought 15 kilometers long and bristling with enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. Supreme War Marshal Kex Prime stood in the vessel's command center, his 4 eyes studying holographic displays showing the approaching Sol system. The aging Zephyrian leader had conquered 47 star systems during his career, but the humans had proven surprisingly resilient. This final assault would end their resistance once and for all. "Status report," Kex Prime commanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. "All battle groups are in position," replied his tactical coordinator. "Our forward scouts report minimal human fleet presence. They appear to be concentrating their forces around their homeworld." Kex Prime's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The humans were making the same mistake as countless others before them, believing their home could be defended through conventional means. They would learn otherwise. Meanwhile, in Earth's orbital defense grid, Admiral Torres coordinated humanity's response from the command ship Indomitable. Around her, the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled, prepared for battle. 200 ships of various classes, from massive battle cruisers to swift attack corvettes, took their positions in a defensive formation that had been planned for decades. But Torres knew conventional tactics alone wouldn't be enough. The real key to survival lay with the Titan operatives scattered throughout the fleet and hidden in secret facilities across the solar system. Commander Zoe Atlas felt the familiar weight of her enhanced combat armor as she stood in the briefing room, aboard the assault carrier Prometheus. Around her, 49 other Titan operatives listened as their mission parameters were outlined. These were humanity's finest warriors, each one capable of taking on dozens of conventional soldiers. "Our target is the Dominion's Wrath," briefed Colonel Frost via hologram. "Intelligence suggests it's carrying a planet-killer weapon. Your job is to get aboard that ship and ensure it never fires." Atlas nodded, her augmented mind already calculating attack vectors and contingencies. At 32, she had been one of the first successful Titan candidates, her body and mind pushed beyond normal human limits through a combination of genetic therapy, cybernetic enhancement, and brutal training. Insertion will be via stealth. Pods during the main engagement, Frost continued. You'll have approximately 40 minutes before our fleet is forced to withdraw. Make them count. As the briefing concluded, Atlas caught sight of Earth through the carrier's viewports. The blue marble hung in space like a precious jewel, home to 8 billion souls who were counting on them to succeed. Failure wasn't an option. Light years away, the Zephyrian fleet began its final approach towards Sol. Their ships moved in perfect formation, their commanders confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. They had faced desperate last stands before, watched as inferior civilizations, threw everything they had against the inevitable tide of conquest. But as Kex Prime studied tactical displays showing Earth's defenses, something nagged at the back of his ancient mind. The humans had proven surprisingly adaptable, their warriors far more capable than initial intelligence had suggested. Perhaps this wouldn't be as simple as previous conquests. Prepare for hyperspace jump, he commanded. All ships, battle formation. Today, we end this war. The massive fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving only empty space, where moments before a force capable of conquering star systems had assembled. In 12 hours, they would emerge at the edge of Sol system, and the final battle for Earth would begin. Atlas checked her weapons one final time and whispered a prayer to whatever gods watched over warriors. Soon, she and her fellow Titans would prove once again that humanity would never kneel. The Zephyrian armada emerged from hyperspace. Like a storm of metal and death, their massive fleet casting shadows across the outer planets of Sol system. 2,300 vessels strong, they advanced in perfect formation toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. Supreme War Marshal Kex Prime stood aboard the Dominion's Wrath, watching as his forces deployed for the final assault. The blue world ahead held 8 billion humans who had dared to defy the collective. Soon, they would learn the price of resistance. "Begin the demonstration," Kex Prime ordered. "Target their outer colonies first. Let them watch their civilization burn before we claim their homeworld." But as Zephyrian weapons powered up, space itself seemed to come alive around them. What had appeared to be empty void suddenly revealed hundreds of human ships emerging from stealth fields and sensor shadows, like predators from ambush. Admiral Torres smiled grimly as her trap was sprung. "All ships, execute Warhammer Protocol. Show them what happens when you threaten our home." The battle erupted across three-dimensional space with devastating intensity. Human ships, outnumbered 10-1, fought with desperate courage and tactical brilliance. Every vessel had been modified for maximum firepower, their crews trained for exactly this moment. Captain Victor Kane commanded the battlecruiser Thunder's Edge, leading a squadron of destroyers in a deadly dance around Zephyrian capital ships. His enhanced reflexes, a gift of limited Titan augmentation, allowed him to process combat data faster than any normal human. "Port batteries. Target that cruiser's engine section," Kane ordered, watching as his gunners found their mark. The alien vessel shuddered under the impact, its propulsion systems failing in cascade explosions. But the real battle was happening aboard the Dominion's Wrath itself. Commander Zoe Atlas and her strike team had successfully penetrated the super dreadnought's hull, fighting their way through corridors filled with Zephyrian defenders. Atlas moved like liquid death through the alien ship, her augmented body allowing impossible feats of speed and strength. Behind her, Sergeant Luke Morrison and Corporal Nina Walsh carved through enemy positions with ruthless efficiency. "Planet Killer weapon is 3 levels down," Morrison reported, his voice calm despite the chaos around them. "Heavy resistance expected. "Then we go through them," Atlas replied, her enhanced muscles propelling her forward with inhuman grace. The weapon chamber was a cathedral of destruction, housing a device capable of cracking worlds. Zephyrian technicians worked frantically to complete firing sequences while elite guards formed defensive positions. What followed wasn't a battle. It was an exhibition of human determination made manifest. 3 Titan operatives against 50 alien warriors, fighting for the survival of their species. When the smoke cleared, only the humans remained standing. Atlas placed demolition charges with practiced precision while her teammates held the entrances. Charges set, 60 seconds to detonation. They fought their way back through the ship as explosions began tearing apart the super dreadnought's core. Behind them, the planet-killer weapon died in fire and fury, taking Kex Prime's dreams of conquest with it. In space, the tide of battle turned as news of the Dominion's Wrath's destruction spread through both fleets. Human ships pressed their attack with renewed vigor, while Zephyrian formations began to waver. Kex Prime's final transmission was broadcast across all frequencies as his flagship broke apart around him. How? How did a primitive species defeat the collective? Admiral Torres answered from the bridge of her battered but victorious flagship. Because we don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight for our homes, our families, our freedom, and that makes us stronger than any empire. The surviving Zephyrian ships fled into hyperspace, carrying word of humanity's victory to the far corners of the galaxy. Earth had not only survived, it had announced itself as a force to be reckoned with among the stars. As Atlas and her team were recovered from the wreckage, she looked out at Earth hanging peacefully in space and smiled. They had asked humanity to kneel, but received a lesson in human determination instead. The age of human expansion among the stars was about to begin.